Welcome to TSU Human Performance Sports Science Podcast, where we dive into the fascinating world of sports science and innovation, right here at Tennessee State University.
We are your hosts.
I'm Neil Monet
and Franka Sindicic, and today we are taking you on an exciting journey to educate, entertain, and keep you up to date of happenings right here on our campus.
In each episode of TSU HPSS, we'll bring you exclusive interviews with our expert faculty, coaches, student athletes, and our students from our departments who are making stride in this field.
You will gain the insights into the latest training techniques, nutrition strategies, and sports psychology breakthroughs that are now shaping the future of sports performance.
All while bringing it to you from an HBCU perspective.
Welcome back, everybody, to our HPSS podcast. Today we have a special guest, JP. He's going to tell us his full name and introduce himself a little bit.
Thank y'all for having me. I don't know if I'm a special guest or not. I'm a regular guy around here. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Hall. Everybody calls me JP around here. I am a graduate of Tennessee State University and the Human Performance and Sports Science Department. I was here from 2016 to 2020. I am currently an athletic trainer working at the university. It's a little different for me. You know, my time that I was here was right after the athletic training, like focus and everything like that ended, where they were doing curriculum specific to athletic training. So I came in with the general HPSS, coaching focus, everything like that. But I actually didn't register for HPSS when I initially came in. I initially started off as a chemistry major, and then switched to HPSS with a focus in exercise science.
What got you to switch?
So I initially was starting off to do forensic chemistry, and during my summer visit, I worked with football. I met the strength and conditioning staff. I met the athletic training staff, and I did athletic training when I was in high school, and I was like, yeah, this might be something I actually like, you know, but I don't really know, like, I was watching NCIS, First 48, CSI, watching all the crime junkie shows. I'm like, that looks really cool. Until I realized I was going to have to be in a lab for the rest of my life wearing a white coat and goggles. I'm like, that's not my wave. So I made the switch after talking to one of the professors, Dr. Jones, my guy right there. He's my advisor for all 4 years. Shout out Dr. Jones. And I made the switch, and I haven't looked back since, to be honest. I really enjoy everything I do, even from my time here as a student, working in strength conditioning, like I said, coaching softball from sophomore year to senior year, working my way up that ladder, and even now switching over into athletic training and working in all the, most of the major different sports and areas.
So what was your first job as an athletic trainer? And what were some of the responsibilities that you had? Okay.
So my first job, graduating from school, I worked at a high school in West Texas. And with that, so having worked in the high school setting is different from college and professional, which I both worked in. The high school setting is a larger population size, so you work with any and everybody. So you have freshmen, you have the JV team, you have the varsity team. And the school that I was at was different from any other school in the district, in that we had 3 more sports than everybody else. And our school was a little bit different compared to the rest of the schools in our district, that all of our sports were off campus. So we didn't have anything in-house. Our training facility was different from every other sport except for track and powerlifting. Everybody else was off campus. So my stuff ranged from physicals, doing blood pressure, doing EKGs, doing pulse, doing concussion screenings, doing the base things like that, to communicating with doctors if kids had injuries. It was game coverage. It was activities. If they were outside for practice or anything that was sanctioned by the school, an athletic trainer had to be present. I was also doing rehabs, whether it was post-operative or conservative treatments where they didn't want to go to the doctor or they couldn't afford to go to the doctor. That was a big thing that affected my patient population, because I worked with predominantly minorities, with my main population being the Hispanic population. And so I dealt with issues where there was a language barrier where, only the kids spoke English. The parents did not speak English. At that time, I was not as well versed in Spanish as I am now after, taking other job opportunities. So, dealing with that language barrier for one, and then being able to get consent. And then I also had to work on occasion with middle school students, because we had feeder schools that would come and play at the high school, and you just have those games like that just to build a connection with those young athletes and still cover and respond to parents and do everything like that. So I was able to focus in the full scope of my practice and a little bit more at the high school with my 5 domains for athletic training being prevention and care. You have emergency care, therapeutic intervention, evaluation, documentation. I'm forgetting one more. Interprevention and care. Gosh, wow. Don't be like me. Know all the 5 domains for athletic training. And rehab, therapeutic interventions, I believe that's the one I missed right there. So being able to cover all those domains, but I also had 700 athletes, which made it a little bit difficult, when you only have 2 athletic trainers and 700 athletes. That still breaks you down to 350 guys, but it allowed me to see the full potential of what an athletic trainer could be.
You said you got some experience in the professional field. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. So while I was getting my master's degree after leaving TSU, I went to Texas Tech and was blessed with the opportunity to go out to Las Vegas and work in the pro football realm for a few months. After that, I took a job working in professional baseball. I did a season with the rookie ball team, which is the lower level, and then I also worked with the rehab group, meaning I was working with anybody from big league guys that have had service time to working with guys that haven't even been officially put on a specific roster. So anywhere from rookie ball, low A to major league guys, to get exposed to all those different body types, different, injury history levels, just seeing how different athletes respond just from all different levels.
All right, so now that you came back to TSU, how does that feel? Was it something you always had in mind?
Actually, yes. Coming back to TSU has always been a goal of mine. Coming here, when I first got here, TSU gave me an opportunity to showcase my potential and my talents when others doubted. And folks have said that, when I first came in from high school having a 2.7 GPA, so barely making the cut to be able to qualify academically. But thankful for the opportunity to come to TSU, get mentored, learn, grow from there. I finished TSU with a 3.7, 3.8, right? Something completely different from high school. But I'm glad to be able to come back and be able to give back to the university that first gave to me and gave me an opportunity. TSU has a very strong culture. Once you get connected, once you get into it, and once you buy into TSU, so it's very home. It's very much so home to me, and I'm glad to be able to wear my bright blue right here on my chest and represent TSU every day, and hopefully show others what it means to be a Tiger. Many people use different phrases. There's times where it's bleed blue, Tiger, just everything like that. But I feel like through everything, whether working high school, working college, filling in for collegiate basketball, filling in for collegiate baseball, filling in for track, wherever I'm at, wherever I've been at, I feel like I've tried to strive to represent the family, the honor, the integrity, the grit and grind it takes to go through and make it through Tennessee State, and represented it on my chest and show as best as I can, because this is the spot that made me who I am.
So by the time that you're here, back at your studies, how did you know what certifications do you need? Did any of the professor give you the guidance, and what are the certifications that you needed actually for the athletic trainer?
So for my time while I was here, it was a lot of different things thrown at me from different ways. Whereas I could have went and got a strength and conditioning certification, I could have went and got an EMT certification, paramedic certification, different things like that. The whole personal training, just different avenues, just to be able to expand my horizons when it comes to rehab or acute and emergency care, or therapeutic interventions, rehab interventions, prescription timetables, everything like that. But it really started off back when I was at high school with my high school AT, just being a mentor to me, along with Mr. Trevor Cersei, who is our director of sports medicine right now, to give me just a baseline of like, really and truly look at what is required for you to become just even a basic athletic trainer. And then you adjust your certifications to what you want to do as an AT. So I started off when I got here just knowing, all right, if I want to do athletic training, I know with the new rules and regulation that was coming into play, that it was gonna be required for you to get a master's, and anybody that had a bachelor's was not going to be obsolete, but they're going to be grandfathered in. But the next few generations of ATs are going to be coming in with a master's degree, and it's going to be similar to how physical therapy did a couple decades back, and adjusted their stuff from the master's program to the doctoral program, where you don't want to be seen as aged out or phased out or anything like that. So I'm like, all right, I'll get my experience, and then I'll go get my master's, and then from there I'll see what other opportunities or what things that I like in athletic training. I'm thinking, well, this is more so my nature. Let me grow my strengths to where I'm proficient in those and I'm excelling in those, and then I can develop my other traits around to be able to have as many tools as I can get. So currently, I have all the basic stuff. So I have my ATC, my athletic training certification. I have my license of athletic training, which you have to get for every state that you work in. And I also have my master's of athletic training, which, like I said, is part of that grandfather then. And then recently I just got my performance enhancement specialist certification through NASM. I'm also currently working on an isometric strength training and testing certification right now through Sportsmith. And I have a couple more on the docket that I want to get just to help develop my prevention and care, and also develop my evaluation skills, because I feel like the easier it is for you to be able to pick up on trends and things like that, it helps reduce the severity of injury, because we can't reduce injury, but we can, we can't fully prevent it. We can reduce the likelihood. We can reduce the time down during injury. Depends on how soon you catch it and how well you track it is a big thing for that right there.
So about those many certifications that you got, could you offer any more advice about how to get ready for those certifications? And do you think that the more you get, the better it is?
So for certifications and everything like that, I feel like you should never just limit yourself. So with getting different certifications, you get different perspectives from whoever is teaching the course. You get different thought processes, different, studies, different backgrounds, different everything when it comes to it. And so it doesn't hurt for you to learn. I'm just going to use an example. You can learn how to use prevention and care stuff, right? Which is then something that you can take over and use in your evaluation, but you can also help use in your documentation right there. So learning different things and from different people, where you might have 3 or 4 different ways to do soft tissue. Y'all know just as well as I do, each one of y'all are different in how you like soft tissue work done. Somebody's more hands-on, somebody's more, I like using compression therapy better, or I like, my hands-on. I like using, trigger points. I like working with needles. I like working with cups. I like doing exercises to help my fatigue. That's all different certifications right there. I just named 5, 6 different certifications that you can get right there, but it's all responsible for the same thing, which is your therapeutic intervention.
So you're saying that you can have a certification for every single technique itself?
You can have as many certifications as allowed. So the only thing is that with some certifications, they are not accessible for athletic trainers. They might be specific for physical therapists or occupational therapists or nurse practitioners or chiropractors. So the first thing I would say to do is look at your state's Practice Act, which means it's a outline and guideline for everything that your profession can do in a specific state. And that specifically applies for me as an athletic trainer. So whereas in certain states, an athletic trainer can perform dry needling as long as they have proper certification and guidance from their physician who they're under. Where in other states, you cannot do such things because it's only specifically held for certain people with certain certifications and degrees. So it's important to first look at that right there, and then from there you can tailor your skills to that, or you can go ahead and get the certification knowing that you ultimately want to end up somewhere where you can use the full practice that you've learned to be able to ultimately render the best care possible, which is what you want to do as an AT.
So, what is your technique? Are you using more needles? Are you using more cupping? Are you using more hands-on? What's your belief about?
So my belief and philosophy is I am a motion is lotion type guy. So by that I mean I like to use exercises, but I also know and understand as, a high school athlete and a washed up recreational athlete. I know sometimes you just need somebody to put their hands on you to get out a knot, because cupping can only take you so far. Hitting a lacrosse ball, hitting a foam roller, doing as many yoga poses and different stretches that you might see online, everything like that can only do you so well. Like, it can only get you so far. Sometimes you need somebody to help you get over the hump, and I understand that that is something that is different per person. Some people want more hands-on stuff. Some people want to be independent and have more control over their body because they know and understand their body better. So my philosophy is, as I'm learning and doing more things, like I said, I'm currently taking an isometric course, right, which helps for people who, I'm not big on lifting weights. I'm not big on doing this, not big on doing that. Well, this right here is just static position, holding for a certain percentage at a certain amount of force. And it allows you to strengthen with causing reduced fatigue with certain types of isometrics, whereas others can cause more fatigue because they're more focused on, an eccentric control on the return if you have weights or if you're using hand therapy. This just allows me to be able to do more things with and without weights. So this stuff I can do with weights or I can do it on the go where I don't need to take anything, but I know the material to be able to help something out. Whereas with my rehab and therapeutic and recovery philosophies are, like I'm saying, I want to give you all the options that can help benefit from you. Because if you're somebody who has tight, fascia, you might benefit from things that's working on loosening up connective tissue and things like that to be able to benefit you. Or you might be somebody that is chronically tight or needs to work on breathing techniques and, basically just work on just like mental health to be able to help relax your body, which then will send out more hormones and things like that to help your body heal itself. But it's different swings for different people. So I like to give myself as many opportunities to help as many people as possible, because that's my biggest thing. I want to be able to create an impact on others as others have impacted me.
So speaking of the certifications, can you maybe tell us how much do you have to pay for all of that? Is it expensive? What's your opinion about that?
So it really depends on what type of certifications that you're looking for. So to get, like I mentioned, dry needling earlier on, dry needling certification can run you easily $1,000, right? And that's just one thing. For me, just even getting my license and my national board certification, it cost me $300 to take the test the first time. Strength and conditioning can cost you $330, I think I'm looking at right now, and that's excluding buying materials to be able to study for the course. But it really just depends, thankfully there's different websites that do bundles and different things like that, and the prices are already lower and cheaper for certain certifications if you're a student and you can show that you're actively pursuing a certification, a degree or something similar that would be in the profession. So they do great deals with that. But once you become a professional, that's when you can hit anything from you can find free online stuff to where you could pay a couple $1,000s for different things like that. So it's really important as you get going and as you start to look into the profession and things like that, making sure that your institutions, organizations, things like that are doing things for continuing education and giving you the opportunity to be able to grow yourself, which is always a good thing, because as an athletic trainer, you have every couple years continuing education units that you have to report to the national board to be able to keep your license and everything like that. So it's important just to stay afresh on things and keep your mind open to different things, because nothing stays the same in this world.
That's actually what I wanted to ask next. So do you have to actually renew any of your license, or you can just report it and then they just keep you away?
So you renew your license every year through the National Athletic Training Association. You don't have to have an NATA membership, but NATA gives you a lot of good resources on expos and different articles and best practice things, and just gives you a lot of good material to have as an athletic trainer. Every couple of years you have to submit your continuing education units and go through that process, and then you have to pay a fee. It depends on the state how often you have to renew your license. In certain states it's yearly, in certain states it's every 3 to 4 years, in certain states it's every 2 years. So it's also, just like I was saying, looking at your Board of Athletic Training's Practice Act, it lets you know how frequently you have to do it. And I know for every state, if you don't renew it and you let it lapse, you have a fee that you have to pay. And you can also get in trouble if you're doing anything while your license is lapsed. That's called practicing without a license, and that can get you completely barred from using your athletic training license and certification on your national board altogether.
Okay, thank you for the information. And now back to the sports and injuries. I wanted to ask you, what was the sport that you worked the most with, and what are some of the most common injuries that you had in that sport?
So between my time working as a student to working as a professional, the sport I worked with the most was football. Just because of the sheer size of the football team and the prevalence of so many different types of injuries in football, it gave me the greatest opportunity to learn and see different things. I'll give you actually my favorite sport that I've worked so far is softball and volleyball. I'm really liking working with the tennis group. It's a lot of new things that I'm learning, and it's catering to different things that I like to do. I'm an upper extremity guy and back guy, so I like to do things like that working. I like the complexity of the shoulder, I like the complexity of the back, complexity of the hip. It just makes me stay fresh on everything right there. But working with football, I've seen many of the injuries from subdermal hematomas to cervical fractures to broken bones on the regular to dislocations to many of things like that. Thank God I've never had anybody perish while under my care while I was doing anything. I've had a colleague who actually had to resuscitate someone, and just hearing her thought process and everything before and after, how that takes, a toll on you. But don't hear me saying all this as something to scare you or, keep you fearful. You are trained and educated and go through all these things to make you prepare for the worst of the worst. But on a regular, soft tissue injuries and young athletes, fractures are the most common things right there. It's about how you respond via your training and your thought process that makes the biggest difference before and after for the situation. Don't be afraid to ask questions with injuries and things like that, and don't be afraid to reach out to your doctors, because that's what they're there for, is to give you information about what is going on, and then you can do research from there and find out what is best practice to be able to provide for those injuries, whether it's a fracture and, you have to be in a cast. Well, you have 6 to 8 weeks for the bone to heal to be able to figure out exercises for that specific spot. If it's, a traditional break and muscular stuff, it really just depends on the timeline, the patient's healing process and everything like that, to where you can slow down and speed things up. But, every injury has its own boxes that need to be checked for you to go to the next thing safely and to not cause harm to the patient or bring them back too soon to where they can harm themselves.
And besides all of the things that are mostly common, my question is, what can, besides the rest, also help prevent the injuries? What can you do about your body in order to prevent them?
So with prevention of injuries, it can be a multitude of things. There's places that like to do monitoring and strength testing and different things like that to see for data trends if somebody is actually growing stronger and getting more stable and more flexible or different things like that. Or you have other things where it's more self-reporting, more performance-based, different things like that. I'm going to start off with just like the general public and my philosophies on it. For the general public, I believe it's always important to make sure that you work on strengthening, endurance, flexibility. I'm going to say that one again, flexibility, right? Nutrition, hydration, rest, things like that, because those things all are important, right? If you're working out a lot, you're working on your power, your strength, and you're working on, your speed and agility, but you're not working on eating a proper diet, hydrating, and stretching, you're going to be still as liable to have a muscle or bone issue as somebody that does absolutely nothing, right? Because you're putting so much tax on your body. So think of the body as $100 bill, okay, right? If you go out and you have a super hard training session that takes about 30-40% off of you, right? Now you're at $60, right? You just lost $40. Now you replenish that by getting a good night's sleep, hydrating, eating well. Well, if you eat a peanut butter and jelly like I had for lunch, don't be like me, right? You eat a peanut butter and jelly, extra jelly, light on the peanut butter, right? You're not even getting your proteins. You're just loading yourself up with sugar and processed materials, right? And then you go out, if you're over the age of 21, you go out drinking, right? That takes away from that nutrition that you were getting right there to be able to replenish yourself back to 100. And then you stay out to 2, 3 in the morning, you back at 60. You might actually be lower than 60 because you didn't get the proper amount of sleep that you need. If you're over the age of 20, 21, your body needs at least 6 to 7 hours of sleep. 6 to 7 solid hours of sleep, not waking up in the middle of the night, not getting up, stretching, walking around, smashing 3 bottles of water. Sleep for your body to return back to homeostasis is normal. But if you're out doing all these different things, now sometimes things change. Once you get older, you start to have a family, your sleep pattern gets a little bit interrupted, so you have to learn how to function. But that's where you incorporate the other things to help supplement for that. So that's why it's important to have a good hydration, a good nutrition, eating healthy. I'm not knocking eating fast food. I eat fast food myself, right? But eating a fast food diet is not healthy. That's why, the U.S. has one of the highest obesity rates, and it's the life expectancy continues to shrink. It's because of unhealthy fast food eating lifestyles, sedentary people, sitting at a desk, different things being hunched over. Your body doesn't function properly like that. So it's making sure that you take care of your body through the totality of it.
Also, you mentioned stretching. I know that a lot of people kind of try to stretch, but I wanted to ask you, what do you think of the importance of mobility exercises? Do you also have to include that?
So, flexibility is a huge thing that the general population forgets about. They see all these different guys are doing a lot of strengthening. They're doing a lot of, running. They're doing a lot of cardio, Stairmaster, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to get into this body. Something, da-da-da-da. Well, if you really want to take full advantage of strengthening and sports, being able to do these activities, and you're not stretching and being able to lengthen your muscles, the longer that your muscles can lengthen and have strength in it, the more force that you can produce, the better athlete that you can be, right? If your bicep only goes out and extends to about 130 degrees as opposed to getting closer to that 180, 150, about 150-ish, there about that range. Depends on, how swole you are, right? If your arm is only getting up to like an L, you're not going to be able to produce as much force as somebody that can straighten out that arm and do the same thing, right? It's the same way. Use an example of somebody that you said rotational stuff. I'm going to use a baseball tennis, analogy, right? If you can't rotate, if you can't reach and like touch your scapula, if you can't do things like that, you don't have that mobility to be able to do that or be able to put your hands behind your back and reach over top and be able to touch. You lose mobility, which means you're losing force production. And if you're playing a competitive sport or you're really intrigued on being competitive and being able to be your best self, you lose force production. That loses speed, that loses strength, that loses, that shortens time or elongates time depending on what sports you're doing, and it takes away from your full potential. So flexibility plays a huge role in flexibility through your whole range of motion, which is what a lot of competitive athletes miss, is strengthening and stretching to those end ranges and having stability in those end ranges makes a big difference in your time that you're injured, so the amount of time that you miss or even the severity of those injuries. Because if you only strengthen through the mid part, your muscles is strongest there, but is weakest on the two further sides of it.
I'm so glad that you mentioned all that because I recently had a conversation about how strength conditioning can help athletes on the field, on the court, right? And I had a hard time explaining myself and explaining how being strong, but not as somebody that do bodybuilding, but as somebody that can move well and be strong on those end range of motion, right? And be explosive and use all that power on the court to be better. But I'm glad that you mentioned that. That was pretty clear. And so one more thing that I wanted to tell us is about if you could pick any sport you could work with at TSU, which one would it be? Don't say tennis because I know you're working with us, but you don't have to say tennis. What sport would it be?
If I could have any sport to work, what would it be? First off, I'm going to put out the disclaimer. Each sport has its own uniqueness. So no sport is ever, just the same. Where tennis has a lot of rotational component, eccentric, strengthening components, because you have to be able to, stabilize, be able to stop on a dime, be able to make quick movements. Very much so similar to basketball, to football, to softball, to a lot of other sports. But there's a lot more rotational component to tennis that some of these other sports don't have, because tennis players have to be able to move through left, right, being able to being able to create force, and sometimes to be able to create force when they don't even have a stable base, which is very unique comparative to like some of these other sports where a quarterback does the same motion every time. He's going to drop back, and if he has to roll out, he still is able to keep both feet. Everybody talks about Patrick Mahomes and throwing like that, but is being able to generate that force and being able to do different things with your body that is very critical. But gosh, that's a tough question. My favorite sport overall, as a fan and spectator, is baseball. Always loved baseball. Always loved working with it right there. So I would have to say baseball, because it gives me my components of my shoulder, back, hips, things like that. All the things that I like to learn and just dive deep into. But I wouldn't just limit myself to that, because I want to continue to grow and learn different sports, because I'm a traditional sports guy, right? I played football, I like to watch football. I play basketball, I like to watch basketball. I play baseball, I like to watch baseball. So I like to learn sports that were not common in my community that I grew up in. And so the more that I learn, I feel like the more I can connect with more people, and also just broaden my horizons with that.
Okay, thank you for that. And just to conclude everything, what would you recommend to the students that wants to become AT? Would you recommend them to go and do their observation hours of the internship to figure out what do they really want to do that? Because I know that a lot of people think that they want to be ATs, and then for example, when they see the very rough injuries, I'm not sure, like they're not sure if I can take this. So would you encourage them to go out and volunteer and do the internship and observe, so in the other clinics and other sports?
The first thing I would tell prospective athletic trainers is that you would, for one, have to love what you do, because if you think being an athletic trainer is going to pay you the same as being a doctor, it's not. Do you think it's going to give you the same hours as a physical therapist? It's not, because you work with your sport, you work for your sport. Now, I'm not saying this to knock athletic training or anything like that. I love my profession. I love what I do on a daily. I love being there to see the progress of each one of my athletes from day to day. When they have the little goal, like their little victories, I'm their biggest cheerleader. If I'm not, I apologize to every one of my athletes that I wasn't, because I try to make every little goal that you have seem like the biggest milestone you've ever had in your life, because it is a big milestone. It's so easy for you to take a step back. It's hard for you to commit and take a step forward. So what I would say to my prospective athletic trainers again is find something that you love and stick with it. So if you are a person that likes to be outside and likes to work with your hands on and likes, do different things like that, or work around different groups, fast pace, hours can be stable, hours can be very unstable depending on how you regulate your routine, your system, everything like that. Athletic training might be for you. For my athletes out there that are coming out of the athletic world and wanting to come into something with sports, athletic training is an opportunity for you to continue what you've learned and bring the philosophies of being an athlete into the athletic training world, because you have firsthand experience and firsthand knowledge of what it is and what the grind is to be an athlete, so you can connect with them. But that doesn't mean that because you spent 4 or 5 or however many years being an athlete, doesn't mean that you're set behind everybody else that just did athletic training, because you have different set of experiences than somebody who wasn't an athlete didn't get. But I would recommend for anybody taking your time, looking at the other options, because there's a lot of options that work with athletic trainers in the world of what's called allied health. So you have athletic trainers, physical therapists, occupational therapists, nurses, if we're talking the sports world, orthopedic nurses, gen medical nurses, you have doctors, sports science, sports analytics, different people like that. They give you a different perspective around athletics, but doesn't put you as the middle person between the player, the parent, the coach, and other teammates, whereas everybody comes to the athletic trainer, and the athletic trainer just, plugs and plays and fixes and communicates and is the middle ground for all communication and all things like that, when everybody needs to go to their respective spots. So look at all those options as well. And if you go to all those and still be like, I really liked what was going on in that training room, then you might have found your niche. If you're like, well, I'm going to want a family, I want to settle down, I'm going to want to have regular hours, you can still do athletic training, but you work in a clinic. You work with physical therapists, or you work with a physician and work with a doctor specific on, evaluation and things like that. Working with a physical therapist, you're more specific to rehabilitation. Whereas working in a college, high school, industrial, those settings like that, you're going to get the full totality of athletic training, prevention, rehab, emergency care, things like that. So you can find athletic training in its different forms. If you're more so of a business guy, you can do athletic training in business. You can sell, braces, you could sell insurance and different things like that, because you get that experience working in athletic training. So I would say shop around. Don't just limit yourself to athletic training, because it touches so many other realms that you can get the same pull and itch of athletic training without taking on something that you won't feel comfortable or not being able to give the patients that you have, the athletes that you have, the full totality of care that is required under the full scope of practice.
Thank you so much, JP. That was a great podcast. That was a great subject. I think we out of question. You just answered them all. So thank you again, and I appreciate you being our guest today. And hopefully we can have you again maybe later this semester.
My pleasure. I'll be waiting the face-to-face or the phone call, the text message, whatever way y'all want to reach out to me. Please.
All right.
Thank you.
You have a good day.